Hello and welcome back. I've been struggling with this Barracuda Stratocaster that I bought for $100 off of Facebook, and also got a stand, practice amp, cord, 3 books, and 2 right-handed pick guards, one still housing 2 pickups, a tone and a volume pot. So for $100 I thought, why not? So we went ahead and bought it. To this point, we have changed the strings. We polished down all the frets because they were tarnished and it seemed to have a coating on them that was flaking off. So either way, we did that and they're much better than what they were beforehand. As I say, we've restrung it. We did a complete setup. What we found when we brought it home is that there was 3.5 millimeters of action at the 12th, so it was way out. So we flattened out the neck. We adjusted all the lugs either side of the strings to make the action as best we could. Now what we've got is action of 1.75 through at the 12th. I like a 1.75 because I do finger picking only. I don't strum, so there's not a lot of oscillation in the strings, and you can get a lot lower action without buzzing. So now we've got to that point, but I'm having trouble keeping it in tune. Yeah, it rolls in tune a little bit. So I double checked the neck, made sure it was down tight. Not sure what the body is made of. It's a Barracuda, so it's obviously a very inexpensive guitar. It seems a little light, so I don't know if maybe it's pine or willow or something in the body. Who knows? But either way, it was having trouble keeping in tune. And what I was noticing was once I could get it into tune, any of my chords were sharp and just didn't sound right. So what we're going to do now is check the nut, because I have a feeling it is way too high and there's way too much action there. So the first thing you're going to need is a capo. Put the capo on at the 3rd fret. And at the 1st fret, the string should be pretty much touching, and they aren't. There is a lot of movement there. So what we've got, okay, down near the lower end, it's not too bad, but there's still too much movement in there. So what we've got is a very high nut. But you can pretty much tell just by looking at it, and it seems like there might be a little bit of, almost looks like it might have been re-glued. There's a little damage in the neck right there at the thicker strings, you can see. So I'm wondering if maybe this took damage, the nut got taken off, and somehow they've put too much glue in it or something. Either way, action is really high. It could be just because it's a very, very cheap guitar. So anyways, we've got the string height at the 12th figured out, but now up here we're obviously too high. So we're going to try and file it down a bit, but I do not have nut files. That's something I have yet to get. So there's a trick, and you can use just one of the other strings, the wound strings, and use it as a file. That's what we're going to try and do here. I've got this one of my old strings to tail off of it. So this will do probably in the lower range, but up in the higher range I think I will need to get another string to see if we can file that a little more. Or we might scrape it out with a razor blade. Who knows? Either way, we have to work on the nut action today. So that's where we're going. Off to the bench. So the first thing we're going to have to do is remove the strings from the nut. And because we have brand new strings on it and we're going to be reusing these strings, we want to loosen off the the skinniest strings first. What I do is take 3 winds down on all of them, and then go 5 on all of them. And this is because we're wanting to reuse the strings. We're just doing a setup, so we aren't removing them completely. We want to be able to tighten them back up, and if you release all the pressure on these big heavier strings first, you're putting way too much pressure on the small ones, and they are going to break. So, well, they may break. Either way, we're going to get these all loosened off now. We're going to make sure that there's all kinds of room, because what we're going to do is remove the strings from the nut and push them off to the side. And this third one is going to need a little extra loosening because it has to go the largest travel over the side. And then we're going to do the rope trick. And the rope trick is just getting a piece of rope, going down between the strings and the neck on this side, and coming up between the strings and the neck on that side, and then we will just tie it in a half knot behind the nut, or behind the neck. And that's just going to hold the strings out of our way so that we don't damage them. Okay, now let's take a good close look at the nut, which of course is going to require our super glasses. So we want a good close look at this. Now, it is a very cheapy nut. First thing we're going to do is check it with a small screwdriver to see just how tightly it's fit in there, just in case it just snaps off, and then we can just to make this a lot easier, we are going to get sandpaper and sand down the back of the nut. That way we keep them all fairly well in the same side to side type distance, because they weren't bad that way. Because it's either that or else we sand out the bottom of the neck to plant this deeper. This has been re-glued in because I can see the glue there. So we're going to get a razor knife and try and clean off that glue. Never cut towards yourself. Ask me how I know. Oh yeah, you can see all the extra glue that's in there. Let's first off try and scrape it out. We might just be able to make this here a usable guitar eventually. Okay, so what we're gonna go do is find our chisel. Okay, so now we've got out the file, or the chisel, and this is this is horrible. Whoever put the glue down in here was not thinking very cleverly. All right, get my neck brace. Neck brace stand. Try and keep these from getting between all that, and just see how we can make this work. I believe he was red-green in this thing. So let's just take a look and see what we can do about getting some of the old glue out of there. Oh yeah, I can literally fold the glue down off the side. So whatever glue it was that they used was way too thick. So let's see if I can gently hammer the bejeebers out of this. So let's just see what else we can do here. And I wonder if that neck damage was done by the last guy trying to do this. And very carefully try to clear out that groove. I'm trying not to damage the fretboard itself. See, it's things that like this that make a $100 guitar a $100 guitar. Next thing we're going to do is smoothing out the top edge. Carefully, of course, because we don't want to damage the fretboard any more than it is. I'm just trying to lightly scrape down the side walls. And I can see the glue I'm needing to remove here. Now people glue their nut into the slot. I have my 12-string Seagull where it doesn't have a groove, it just has a flat, glue it up against the edge. It doesn't have this here part here, but it is loose and always has been since day one. And I just leave it that way because once you get the tension of the strings, especially on a 12-string, it holds the nut from going side to side. And then I can also adjust it a bit side to side. Between the miniature screwdriver, the razor knife, and that chisel, just try and cut through. Get down in the corner as much as I can while still trying to make sure I don't damage the strings. Wow. So we know what the damage was. Now let's just take a look, see if this is still fitting in there good. And it is. And it is beveled the wrong way, possibly. Yeah, I don't think this one makes too much of a difference. So, what we should probably do before we do any gluing or anything like that we should get the strings back in there, bring them up to tension, and see how it sets. We're not going to glue it until we know. And that's got so much play in it. So we will probably do something like a little sliver of aluminum tape on the side of this. You want a slight angle on the grooves going through the nut as well to come down to where the strings are. And my guess is this one does not have that. No, I'm not cutting, I'm just trying to see if there's a angle. Okay, so this will be the angle that it goes at. We get our little Sharpie and mark the side to the head. Then if we check it later and it's wrong, then we just turn it around and make that the edge to the neck instead of the head. Okay, so, oh, drink. In case you don't understand that. Here's an idea. There's a wide gap and a skinny gap. Betcha the wide gap goes to the wide strings. Duh. All this back and forth I just did with that. Which means, did the guy replace the nut with a right-handed nut? Been here too long to know that that's not something, that is something that can happen. Okay. Oh, drink. Then there's a little bit of play back and forth, so what I'm probably going to do is wrap the end of this in aluminum tape. Or even just the Green Gardener's tape would be enough, because it would at least create a bind. Or I should probably just check Scotch tape first. But either way, anyway, let's make sure we've got as much out of here as we possibly can. Okay, just to give you guys an idea of what I'm doing here. I'm just trying to clean out that groove as much as possible. Because it almost looks like the guy used modeling glue to put that in. Right down into the bottom corner. And I believe we got a bunch more there. Oh, magnet. Okay, let's try this again. Now what I want to do is check the bottom of that and see if it is beveled back and forth the way the nut is. And it doesn't really seem to be. It could just be the glue in the base there that I'm finding. Or I have flattened it out. Now it's not completely solid, but let's just make sure these grooves are. I'm trying not to cut it, I'm just trying to clean. Because I'm using a razor knife, X-Acto knife. This could probably work to bring the height down as well, but I'm not trying to do that now because I have a feeling I've lowered the action somewhat drastically just by getting all that crappy stinking glue out of there. So we're going to bring it up to tune, check the action again, and see where we go from there. Okay. Untie the string removal tool, drop the nut on the floor, put the nut back in there before we get this too far in there. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stringy wingies. I'm going to try and keep all the windings up into the beveled area. Okay, now we don't have to bring it up to complete tune because we are just checking action more than anything. So we just want to bring it up to rough tune. Okay, so now we got it into pretty much tune. Let's double check it. Now we're going to put the capo back on at the third and check what kind of distance we have on the first. the thinnest strings, first two for sure, third, fourth, and fifth. The fourth, the thicker four need still to have a little adjustment. So what we're going to do is shave just a little bit off of the edge. So double check which is the thicker end. Do we just shave a little bit off of the nut at this end? Nope, we use sandpaper. So sandpaper is not a good sound for microphones, so I'm just showing you what I'm roughly doing here, and then I'm going to put you on pause. And I'm really hoping this is all for naught, because the guitar won't stay in tune anyways, but every little bit helps. We're going to make this the most set up guitar that never works, if that's indeed what happens. So I'm just shaving off the one side of this because as I say, the bottom is radiused, but the groove doesn't seem to be radiused either way. When we get her done, we get her done. And then we'll see just how she sits and what we can do to create the best possible and was never seen again. Just doing the sides a little bit to make sure we don't have any burrs there. Check it again. It has come down a bit, but is it enough? Okay, here we go again. Oh, drink. In case you don't know what that means, I say okay a lot. So every time you hear me say okay, drink. And replace the nut back in there. Do 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 do. How come it doesn't seem to go right ever? Remove the strings from the string tree is going to give you a bit more room. Let's start from the bottom end and come up here. Okay, like other times, just rough tuning. We don't need to go nuts. Okay, rough tuning. Capo on the third, and yeah, that is much better. There is still a little bit of gap. In the second and the third, but let's just sit back and let this kind of settle a bit and take a breath. Clean up a bit, bring it up to tune, and check it out. See if we're still going out, because that is roughly about a business card thickness. So we might even be able to groove a little depth into those. But first off, let's just observe what happens when we bring this thing to tune and start playing for a little bit. So it's probably going to be about 10-15 minutes of me messing with it to see if it's going to stay in tune or come out of tune. And that's going to go by for you just like... Okay, we're not really going to be able to tell for sure if it's going to stay in tune all the time until we plant this baby. But I went ahead and hammered it a bit, and still takes a bit to get the thing to stay in tune, but there again, they're new strings. But the action down here at the nut is much better, much better. So we are going to... I'm going to have to put something in here because the nut does slide side to side. So for jamming it in there, I think I'm going to use a little piece of the aluminum tape I used for shielding my Strat, my other Strat, my Squire Strat, and just put a little strip along the side of the nut down below where the strings are going to touch it, and that should just keep that jammed in there a lot better than what it is. So that means taking all the strings back down, but it's what has to happen. So away we go again. And I'll show you what I'm going to do. So this is my aluminum tape, of which it is just a little wider than the nut itself. I'm just going to take a sliver off of the end. Probably too much, but I can adjust that later. Razor knife. This might come in handy as long as I don't cut my finger off. Now we want to put it on the side to the head. Please, by all means, tell me why I shouldn't be doing this. just going to cut across the nut just below the slots. Now let's see if that is thick enough to just wedge in there. Well, it is better. But it could take another layer. So all we're really doing is making sure that the aluminum tape doesn't touch the strings. We should be good there. And maybe instead of aluminum tape, we should use the gardener's tape, but what am I really trying to do here? Am I trying to just jam it in there? I think so. I don't really want to try not to glue it in. So I'm going to make absolutely sure that the aluminum tape is nowhere near the slots, but we'll still create some thickness. And this tape will be wider, thicker meaning. So same thing, we want to cut off the extra. We don't want any to go across the bottom. Because that just goes against our height. No unsightly green tape over the ends. Because I said so. And then just to make sure it doesn't make contact with the strings themselves. Now let's see how that fits. Guess what? That is sturdy. Yes, I know it's rather red greenish, but that's what we do here at Coming to Terms with Repairs. Then we can even cut a little closer when we think. Okay. So that. Now, does that require an extra bit of thickness? Let's go all out, for crying out loud. Because we don't want to have to do this again, but at the same time, if we do have to do it again, we want it to be accessible. Now when we jam it in there, is the green still visible? Yes, yes it is. But do I care? No, I don't. Alrighty, let's bring this pig back up to tune and be done with it. Rough tune. Everything is attached there, and let's get it into tune. I'm getting a little sitar noise on the last one. So let's take a look. I'm going to loosen. Quarter of a turn. Increase an eighth of a turn. So we're trying to keep all the saddles level, which I believe they are now. So let's try one more time through for tuning. And I'm still getting a little sitar off of the low E, or high E, whichever one you want to call it. It's a D to me anyways. Where is that coming from? Well, that gives us something to look into next week. Probably should check the action again just to see, because we were messing with it at the 12th. That's now almost like 1.50 or lower. $1.75 there. 1.75. $1.75. 1.50. 1.50. 1.50. 1.50. So we're pretty low on the thicker 4 strings. I'm going to let it set for a bit. We'll check it later today. So I may adjust it a little more over the next couple of days or so to get these thicker 4 up to 1.75. Those the 2 skinny ones are 1.75. The rest of them are about 1.50. But today was nut MacGyvering. What we did was we shaved a little bit off the back to bring this down. Had to dig out a bunch of glue from the gap from where whoever it was that put that in there did that. And then we had to put a little slivers of tape on the edge just to keep that from rocking back and forth. Big day. All right. Thanks for watching. Share, like, subscribe. Leave a comment below if I did something right, did something wrong. I obviously did a bunch of things wrong, so be nice. And we will catch you next week. Hey, check out the other videos on my channel. Might be something in there that you'd be interested into. Thanks for watching. Bye now.